Welcome to this week's Real Estate Weekly Lesson. I am Greg Hellbeck, and if you're not familiar with me, I've been a full-time real estate investor for 10 years. I've done well over 400 properties, and the goal of this YouTube channel and podcast is to share with you what I've learned through my own mistakes and through the mistakes of others, through interviews and videos, so you don't have to learn these mistakes. And just so you know, everything you're going to learn here is from the real world. This is from the trenches. I'm not giving you regurgitated theory out of a book. So if you get value from this and you're watching, do me a favor and like the video, subscribe to the channel. If you're listening, if you can share the show with somebody else, that would mean a lot. So today I'm going to talk about the worst thing you can do to sellers, and it's actually going to come off of a post that I saw on Instagram. And normally I'm not making videos, bashing people. I'm not going to call this person out, obviously, but I saw something the other day and it really triggered me to just really get upset about, what this person was promoting. So long story short, I saw a video the other day where this gentleman was talking about, actually, I don't know if I'd call him a gentleman at this point, but this person was talking about a strategy that he does, to quote unquote, make more money on each deal. And what he was saying is that, about 7 days before closing, they go out and do a re-inspection of the house after they've already inspected it. And they basically put the seller in an extreme disadvantage because they try to renegotiate the price and offer even lower than they originally did because they, quote unquote, want to make more money. And I saw this video and I couldn't believe they even put this on the internet. It's like, if you're going to do this shit, don't tell anybody because it's disgusting. And then number two, I'm like, how could you consider doing that? Like, that could be someone's mother, grandmother, aunt, uncle, father, grandfather. Like, it's disgusting, absolutely disgusting. So the thing that got me so appalled by it is that the way that they talked about it, they were saying, right before the closing. So instead of, renegotiating during your inspection period, which could be fine if you, didn't know something about the property, they wait for the deal to get put together where they have an agreement with the seller. They most likely waive their inspection period. They get a buyer. And then before the closing, they just drop the floor out on the seller and renegotiate to, quote unquote, make more money. It's borderline criminal, in my opinion. It's borderline freaking criminal. And if you think that that's how you're going to make more money, you're not going to last in this business because ultimately, as they say in The Wolf of Wall Street, the chickens will come home to roost. And this is exactly why, in my opinion, the business of assigning and novating contracts will probably become so regulated in 5 years, it doesn't make sense to do because people like this make a bad reputation for the entire industry and they ruin it for the good people. So here's my takeaways that you can apply. So you obviously don't do this because I won't be associated with you if you do something stupid like this. If you need to renegotiate with an owner, number one, it should be for legitimate reasons. And number two, it should be during your inspection period, right? If you are renegotiating afterwards, especially with somebody who's in a disadvantage, and let me explain what I mean by disadvantage. If you think about it, if the seller is 5 to 7 days away from a closing and they have their boxes packed, they have the moving logistics ready to go, and they get hit from some scumbag investor with a price reduction of 10 or 15 grand, they are in a bad spot to be in a good negotiation because if they don't want to take that offer, they got to cancel the contract, they got to go find another buyer, they got to go through that process all over again. And it's probably going to take 2 to 3 months if they're, if it's a novation or something like that. So the seller is in a really weak negotiation position. Therefore, because they got put, quote unquote, under the gun, they have to take this low offer. Now this investor is going to make, quote unquote, more money on each deal, which is disgusting. As you can hear in my voice, I'm appalled by this. Now, if you need to actually renegotiate a deal, number one, it should be for legitimate reasons. And number two, it should be during your inspection period. And number three, the seller should know that during the inspection period, if you need to renegotiate, you will. So let me give you a legitimate example on how you can ethically renegotiate a deal. If you get a house under contract virtually and you've never seen the property, and the seller claims that the property's in decent shape and it doesn't need that much work, which is obviously very vague, and you go into the property afterwards and you realize that it looks like it got hit by an atomic bomb and your numbers were based off of the property and being decent shape, that's totally fine to renegotiate. In that case, the seller's being shady, and there's a lot of shady sellers, right? That's fine, right? That's fine. Hey, seller, you told me that the property was in decent shape, and we came in here, and this thing looks like it needs 150 grand worth of work. Obviously, we can't make our original number work because it needs, 3 times more work than what you said. And then you can renegotiate, and that would make sense. Now, if you have a situation where you have a seller who wants to sell for 500 and you have a buyer who's willing to pay you 500 and there's no margin in the middle, in that case, If you need to renegotiate, 10 or 20 grand and you tell the seller what's going on, I don't think that's too bad, assuming this is during your inspection period. If you're like, hey, I agreed to give you 500. I have a buyer who's willing to pay 500. Obviously, we can't work for free. Would you be open to taking 480 so I can sell it for 500 and make some money so we can continue to run our business? Is that something you'd be open to? And now the seller knows you're transparent about it. You're straightforward about it. You're not trying to rip them off. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that as long as the seller knows what's going on. Maybe the seller says, no, I'm not willing to renegotiate. And then at that point, well, you need to find a buyer to pay more than 500 or else you're not making any money. So there's a right and wrong way to do this business. As you could tell, the story that I shared earlier is the wrong way to do this. And this is why the business, in my opinion, will eventually become extremely regulated because of dirtbags like this who pull this kind of crap. And if you need to renegotiate, there's a way you can do it ethically and transparently, and you can do it to where you don't have to worry about losing sleep at night because you're ripping people off. So hopefully you got value from this, and hopefully you're watching this and you're never going to pull bullshit like this other guy did. And if you have a deal that you want to do legitimately and ethically with me, and it's either in the Seattle market or the Delaware market or the Hudson Valley, New York market, and you want to either wholesale it to me or wholesale it with me, do me a favor, send me an email, greg@velocityhousebuyers.com, or drop me at Instagram DM at grego_37, and I'll see you on the next Real Estate Weekly lesson.